For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The death toll in Israel's war in Gaza has reached 20,000, according to Gaza's health ministry. The United Nations Office of the High Commission for Human Rights says it's received disturbing allegations Israeli forces summarily executed at least 11 unarmed Palestinian men in front of their family members in Al Rimal neighborhood of Gaza City, calling it the possible commission of a war crime. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization warns Gaza no longer has a functional hospital. Only 4 are operating at a minimum level, providing limited care. Sean Casey is an emergency medical team coordinator with the WHO, speaking from the Al-Ahli hospital.
What we found here is a hospital that's really almost completely stopped functioning. 2 days ago, a number of staff were detained. Just last Saturday, we visited Al-Shifa, and they were telling us how they were sending surgical cases here because Al-Ahli had some of the only operating theaters left in northern Gaza, in Gaza City, and those are now no longer functional. They don't have specialists, they don't have surgeons.
The WHO says 10 health workers, doctors, and nurses continue to provide basic first aid for some 80 injured patients who will die slowly and painfully without medicines and other essential needs. In a statement, it's calling for a humanitarian ceasefire. The United Nations Security Council is to take up a resolution for desperately needed humanitarian aid in Gaza for a 4th time this week today. The U.S. is requesting text changes and additions to secure its support as it backs Israel's relentless bombardments in Gaza. Christopher Martinez reports.
National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby laid out the U.S. position.
It's important for us that if the Security Council is going to speak on this, that there's a condemnation of Hamas and what they did on the 7th of October. There's a recognition of the need for Israel to be able to defend itself. And there's, of course, significant commitment by all members on getting humanitarian assistance into the people of Gaza.
Back in Washington, Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke to reporters before leaving for his latest trip to the Middle East. He gives the United States credit for a leading role in facilitating humanitarian aid shipments into Gaza and for repeatedly communicating to Israel the importance of minimizing civilian casualties. He says the conflict needs to move to what he calls a lower intensity phase.
That's really focused in on dealing with the leadership of Hamas, the tunnel network, and a few other critical things.
Meanwhile, negotiations continue over President Biden's supplemental security package with funding for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Blinken says getting that package through Congress remains a top priority.
Here's who cheers if we fail: Moscow, Tehran, Beijing.
I'm Christopher Martinez.
President Joe Biden says it's self-evident Donald Trump is an insurrectionist, but demurs on whether he should be barred from the ballot in next year's election. He made the comments after landing in Milwaukee, one day after the Colorado Supreme Court said Trump was ineligible to serve as president again, banning him from the state's primary ballot.
But he certainly supported an insurrection. No question about it. None. Zero.
The court's decision, which Trump's lawyers are going to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, was based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that bars a person who engaged in insurrection from taking office. Biden also criticized Trump for saying migrants were poisoning the blood of the country. He said he didn't share that idea. 2 of the 6 Colorado voters who filed the lawsuit to bar Trump from the state's presidential ballot spoke out and hailed the court's decision in their favor. Norma Anderson is one of them.
Actually, I was surprised and delighted. I was very happy with the ruling. I felt they read the Constitution correctly. I sat and watched January 6th all day long, and I cried. I still cry thinking about it.
Edwin Vieira has more.
If the U.S. Supreme Court hears the case, it could impact similar lawsuits in 14 other states. To give the High Court time, the Colorado justices put a hold on their ruling until January 4th, one day before the Secretary of State must certify primary ballots. Until then, Trump is still on the list of candidates. I'm Edwin J. Vieira for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
A Russian politician calling for peace in Ukraine registered as a presidential candidate for the 2024 election Wednesday. Regional legislator Yekaterina Duntsova plans to challenge Russia's President Vladimir Putin, promoting her vision of a humane Russia that's, quote, peaceful, friendly, and ready to cooperate with everyone on the principle of respect, unquote. If she's accepted as an independent candidate, the former journalist would need to gather 300,000 signatures of support from at least 40 Russian regions. And the United States freed a close ally of Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro in exchange for the release of 10 Americans imprisoned in the South American country and the return of a fugitive defense contractor at the center of a massive Pentagon bribery scandal. The American detainees are back on U.S. soil as of late Wednesday. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.